Welcome to the 220th episode of the Necronama.com. I am James Sabata, horror author, screenwriter, co-host of the podcast you're listening to right now, and I wish Joe Biden would grow his hair back out. He looks so good in this movie.
I wasn't ready for that cameo. And I'm Don Guillory, author, historian, educator, co-host of the podcast that you're listening to. And, I'm just not eating anything red right now.
Yeah. All right. Joining us this week, Michael David Wilson is here. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Yeah, I guess I've got to give an introduction akin to what you just did. So I am Michael David Wilson. The clue was in the introduction mere seconds ago. I am the host of a podcast, but it isn't this podcast. It is This Is Horror Podcast. And I eat quite a lot of red meat, but recently I have cut back a little bit because those LDL numbers, they could have been hitting records, and I don't actually want to die. And if I do die, then let's make it a little bit more exciting than just, he ate a little bit too much saturated fat. That isn't, that's a little bit anticlimactic. Anticlimactic.
I love it.
I don't know. It's a little bit of a dampener, isn't it? In terms of death and how one would want to go. Because apparently I can't pronounce the word that I was reaching for. So the tip is to just change the word.
There you go. It can be whatever you want it to be. That's the power you have on this podcast. You can change word. Anyway.
Yeah, that's what I say when people don't enjoy the book that I wrote, like any book or any story. I'm like, well, you have the power to change the words. So no excuses really for not enjoying it.
I'm going to start doing that. I'm going to be like, that's your fault for not imagining it correctly. That's pretty great. Yeah. That's very on brand for me too. That's why I don't sell any books.
And I have heard that, a little industry tip is to start beef with the reviewers. So there's a writer's tip right out the gate. That will do well, not only for your sales, but your reputation.
Oh, most
you
definitely.
Look masculine and strong, which is what all writers want to do.
That's great. But why don't you tell our listeners a bit more about you? Just like if somebody hasn't listened to This Is Horror, what should they expect? And you have at least 3 great books. I've read 3. Should I be reading more?
There are 3 books at the moment, but I've got pretty much another 2 ready to go. There are story ideas all the time. So, give me a moment and there'll be more books out there for you too.
Excellent.
Or you can hack into my hard drive and then you can read them right now.
Perfect. I'm going to do that while we're talking. Excellent.
Yeah. Well, you've got a connection to me.
If I phase out, it's because I'm reading. But just tell everybody a bit about the podcast and your books and all that other good stuff you got going on, man.
Well, This Is Horror Podcast, as of this year, has been going for 10 years and over 500 episodes.
Wow.
It is a conversation show in which we talk to masters of horror and writers and creatives. But we don't only deep dive into their work, but we want to know a little bit about their life and their upbringing. So it's usually each conversation is split into 2 episodes. And the first episode is This Is Your Life, where it's like, look what we dug up about you from the past. And which maybe sounds more sinister than it actually is. I mean, it's not a got ya show. And then the second half, that is when we get into the writing, the books, the catalog of each writer. And I mean, we're looking at life lessons too. I want to not only help people grow as writers, but grow as human beings. How can we be better? How can we be kinder? How can we be more authentic? What are the lessons that have been learned from our experiences so far? So I think that it's a little different than most of the horror podcasts out there, kind of like the Tim Ferriss show meets the horror show with Brian Keane, let's say that. And
Nice.
in terms of the writers that we've had on the show, we recently spoke to Chuck Palahniuk, so that's the second time he's been on the show now. We've also spoke to the likes of Dean Koontz and Ellen Datlow, Jennifer Lynch, Gemma Files, Joe R. Lansdale, Charlene Harris, Josh Malaman. I should stop listing writers now because I told you it's been over 500 episodes and this is not the direction that you wanted your podcast to go in. So that is what This Is Horror is all about. It is, that there are 1 to 2 episodes of the podcast every single week. So if you are only just discovering This Is Horror through this conversation, there's quite a lot of catching up to do. But you know, you can jump in any order. It's not canon. It's not like, oh, if you haven't heard the conversation with Grady Hendrix, then you are going to be lost when we talk to Tim Wagner. No, like you can listen to the episodes in any order. So that is the podcast side of things. I mean, it's all under the This Is Horror umbrella, which is a website with various reviews and interviews. It also has a publishing arm. You know, I haven't been doing the publishing much recently because there's only a finite amount of time in my day, and there's only a finite amount of time in everyone's day. If there isn't in yours, if you've got infinite time, then do write in. Do tweet me or X me as we say now. Don't arrest me. That's not inappropriate. It's just, you know, the name of the network now. So that is at This Is Horror. Let me know your secret to getting more time in the day. In terms of the writing, though, 3 books out, as you mentioned. So we've got the novella, The Girl in the Video. We have got the co-authored novel They're Watching, and now most recently we have got House of Bad Memories.
I've read all 3 of these and I adore them. I also like how different each one is. Like they all kind of hit that like the crime feel mixed with horror, and every one of them seems to kind of shift genres throughout, which that's just something I'm into. Don always likes to say that characters don't know what genre they're in. And the new book, especially House of Bad Memories, I feel like that's just constantly true. Even on the last page, I don't think Denny knows what genre he's in. But I love how you shift that, and it always feels real. Because in real life, we're not just in a rom-com all day, or we're not, thank God, and we're not just in a horror movie all day, usually. If I was, I would be in a rom-com and a horror movie. But you're very, very good at shifting it while making it feel unnoticeable if you're not looking for it. And I just wanted to get that out and stumble over my words as much as I could.
Well, thank you very much for the compliment and not for the stumbling, but I won't hold that against you either. I thought you did an excellent job, and if you hadn't drawn attention to the stumbling, nobody would have noticed. But people are rewinding now, and they're like, oh, there's a Sabata stumble. Let's get the counter out. How many have we got?
Probably be, I'll just cut it and make that the trailer. Listen to me stumble. No. No, but I have this thing with writers where I'm fascinated by who kind of stays in one area and who writes different stuff every single time they release stuff. And neither is good or bad to me. Like, it's just what the author's producing. But I'm always fascinated by that. So I guess my first question for you would be, they all seem to fall into crime and horror, as I said. Is that like one of your favorite things to read as well? Or does that just sort of happen, or what?
Well, it certainly is up there with my favorite things to read, because I've said for a long time now that in terms of just personal taste, I prefer real life and human horror over supernatural horror. Now, of course,
Mhm.
I do enjoy supernatural horror too, but if I had to whittle it down to my preference, that is it. And even though in kind of pairings, it's more common to put, let's say, horror, science fiction, and fantasy into the same general category. Those three genres go together. For me, I've more read horror, crime, and dark thriller. That is what I'm most interested in. So I would way rather read something like Silence of the Lambs, or watch a film like Seven or Nightcrawler or Prisoners, than, let's say, watch The Lord of the Rings or Star Wars or Star Trek. And
Mhm.
I think, I mean, to try and unpack where that has came from, or why I'm interested in that, I mean, I think from an early age, and I may have covered this the first time I was on the show, that I've kind of enjoyed being frightened, but the safe scare, as it were. So the safe scare of horror storytelling. And that all comes back to when I was younger and my grandmother told me a number of ghost stories. So I think if we were to continue that roller coaster thrill of being scared, I'm much more likely to get that in a tense film like Silence of the Lambs than I am a film filled with hobbits. I'm not scared of them. I don't fear the hobbit. If
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
do, then that's fine too. But, they don't intimidate me. But perhaps if there were a lot of them, then the numbers game could mean that they would ultimately win.
No, I feel that way about like exorcism movies. They never work for me because I am not scared of that on any level. And so anything with like demons, exorcisms, that kind of stuff, I might as well tap out before we start because it's not going to work for me. Whereas I have friends that is the most terrifying thing in the world to them. So those movies work really well. So I'm always kind of interested in what authors fear and what we write or watch and how that plays into the two.
Yeah, I love it when a story or a movie that explores the supernatural is ambiguous. And that's something I particularly like with A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay. Because if there are
Mm-hmm.
two readings, then I can be scared, because mental health and your brain playing tricks on you and descending into insanity, or someone else descending into insanity who you live with, that is scary. But if
Mhm.
you're to say, all of this is happening because of the Judeo-Christian God, and if I call bullshit on that, I hear people tuning out. How dare you? But if I do, then it's not going to work. If it's just based on things that I can't really believe or suspend disbelief, it's harder for me to have the scare.
Yeah.
That's how my mom is, because I've talked about her a lot on this show. With her big thing is she's a horror fan, but she doesn't realize it and she won't admit it. And whenever we watch a horror film, true crime is her thing. So the two of you would have a great time. Well, I mean, you guys would have a great time, period. But you would have a great time watching any of those true crime or reality based horrors. Because when I try to get her to watch something with zombies or aliens or the occult or anything like that, her first thing is, this is bullshit. I don't get why anybody would be scared. What the hell is wrong with these people? You see the house is acting a certain way. Get out. But she will watch the Discovery Mysteries or whatever it's called, investigation Discovery. And she loves watching that because her response after every episode is, "Oh, there's so many sick people in the world. You don't know who anybody is." And I just point out, I'm like, yeah. Yeah, that's pretty terrifying to think about, all the blood and semen in every episode that you watch.
Yeah. I think what's always fascinating about these discussions is I'll come away almost unpacking my own thoughts on different areas, or really probing, okay, why do I feel this way? And I think that when it comes to the occult, and particularly when it comes to cults, that can be very frightening. It not because there's necessarily truth in what the believers believe, but the scary part is we've got this group of people that fanatically believe in that, and they are going to do terrible things in the name of their cult. That is very, very frightening to me. When it comes to aliens, I can suspend my disbelief a little bit, because I think the universe is so vast that we don't truly know what's out there. But I think it falls apart a little bit if it's just an archetype that has been invented by humans. I mean, if it turns out that aliens actually do look like those weird kind of gray mole rat human-sized ET motherfuckers, then we're gonna be like, how did we get it so on point given the vast array of possibilities? So I mean to kind of backtrack with the supernatural comment, I think the place where it falls apart for me with the supernatural movies is when they try and over-explain it too much. And that's why I mentioned the kind of Judeo-Christian ideas. But if you have something more like Session 9, there's weird stuff going on here, and we're not really explaining what it is. Now, I don't want to spoil that one, because it's like, we know that there will be spoilers on this episode, but the spirit of it is that we spoil the film that we've advertised. Not that you can just go around spoiling everything like some anti-spoiler Robin Hood, spoiling the films for everyone and giving it out. No, but there is Session 9 is very much a film that has ambiguity in terms of the reading. Now, I fall down on one side of that reading, but I can see how other people could take away something else. And so I will watch and I will enjoy supernatural films, but I don't. I guess I don't want you to over explain too much. And then this ties into the idea of, if there's a monster and an antagonist, should we or shouldn't we show the monster? I think often when you show the monster, you begin on some level to understand it. And when you can understand something, it becomes less scary.
Right.
And so you got to be careful. And I think you never really want to reveal all the tricks. I mean, it's a little bit like if you are a magician, and I think as right as we are magicians in a way, you don't want to say, this is exactly how I did the trick. You want to leave some mystery.
Well, even like we recently did Banshee Chapter with Todd Kiesling, and the monsters in that, even when I was trying to pause and get a good view of it, they're still blurred, and like it was so effective. And my exception to the rule is always is it The Host? Yeah, it's The Host, right? The South Korean film.
Yes.
And
yeah.
I absolutely love that they show the monster the whole time in that. Like that's the one that I'm always like, okay, I was fine with it in that. But usually I want like that alien feel, or the, just just not knowing what's out there, because as soon as I know it, it ruins so much of the scare. Like you said, you can understand it and then it becomes semi-logical, and or at least you more logical.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. And I think it ultimately depends what you're going for as a filmmaker or a writer. And so as we say, if you're going for the scare, I'd be pretty cautious about showing the monster or the antagonist. But if you're just writing a cool monster movie, then the whole spirit of it is like you're not really going to scare. It's more like a freaky action movie. That's what a monster movie is. It's fun. It's carnival-esque. It's a little bit camp, but the glory, the enjoyment is in the spectacle. But I don't think really, apart from when you're a little kid, I don't think you're really scared of a monster movie.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I like that. So one of the things I kind of giggled at was you said that you don't like supernatural as much as regular, and I immediately went to your new book, and you have elements of both, and they work very well together. Do you want to kind of give our listeners a little bit of just the elevator pitch of your book?
Well, I think the best way to do this is if I read the blurb, because that really encapsulates the theme. So
excellent.
That is exactly what I'm going to do right now. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. From the author of The Girl in the Video comes a darkly comic thriller with an edge-of-your-seat climax. Denny just wants to be the world's best dad to his baby daughter, but things get messy when he starts hallucinating his estranged, abusive stepfather, Frank. Then Frank winds up dead, and Denny is held hostage by his junkie half-sister, who demands he uncovers the cause of her father's death. Will Denny defeat his demons or be perpetually tortured for refusing to answer impossible questions? House of Bad Memories is Funny Games meets This Is England with a Rosemary's Baby undertaste. Out now via Cemetery Gates Media, also as an audiobook. Which was not actually in the blurb, that last bit. I just thought, let's throw it in. It's like, that's weird.
Why not?
on the back cover. It's like, out now. Well, yeah, it's out now. I'm holding the thing in my hand. Or hands, if you're a two-hand holder for a book.
I read an advanced copy, so it wouldn't have been out, so there's possibilities there.
Yeah, it'd mess with you saying it's out now. You're like, no, it's not.
No, it's not. Anyway.
And then the book replies back to you, yes, I am. I'm in the world. Feed me.
Eats me.
What the hell? Yeah.
But no, first off, like I said earlier, the shifting of genres I thought was just excellent in this. Like Denny starts out in like this nice, like his marriage isn't going perfectly, and everything just feels so rooted in reality, and I could identify with all of it, and it feels like it's going somewhere that it's not, as books do. But this particular one, what I thought was interesting with how you shift genres is it's not slight. It's these massive things happen to Denny, and we move to a slightly different genre, like you talk about his junkie sister or Frank. These things each are huge catalysts each time. Like Frank dies and it's like, oh shit, like what's happening here? Like why was he seeing him before this? And but yeah, like I said, it's just these huge shifts, and that's what I really enjoyed about it, because I feel like that's how life is.
Yeah.
Life is these massive fucking moments that we don't see coming, good and bad, and they just change things. And I feel like a lot of authors shift genres less impactfully, shall we say, and it takes away that realistic feeling. So
Mhm.
yeah, I loved that. And then the let's start there. Do you want to talk about any of that, or
Well, I
do you
mean,
want
in
me to
terms
continue?
of the shifting of genres, I mean, the way that I see it, there are three distinct genres within the book. But of course, as you were talking and you mentioned, the junkie half sister Jade, I thought, well, there is an argument that even though there are three obvious genres, there are actually 5 or 6 genres within the piece if we're really to dig down into subgenres. But in terms of what I did here and how they all came about, I mean, initially, House of Bad Memories, it started off as a novella. And the original novella, was essentially the first half of the book, which I feel that once you're told, okay, this was written in 2 halves, it's quite obvious where the original novella ends. Now, of course, obviously, in the editing process, I have gone back in and weaved things into the narrative so that there's a lot of foreshadowing in terms of what is going to happen. But the original novella, it was a far more understated, dark, British, I want to say dark thriller. I mean, a very dark thriller.
Mhm.
That kind of with horror elements, but it was way more minimalist in terms of the setting. Now, we always had the hallucinations of Frank, or this ambiguity. Is it a hallucination? Is there something supernatural going on here? But I placed the novella with a publisher, and then for a few reasons, then I decided to take the rights back. Nothing wrong with that publisher, just a kind of, I guess, difference in a really minute way that we wanted to do things, but it
Mhm.
was enough for me to say I want the rights back. Then when I got the rights back, I was thinking, well, what do I want to do with this? And I don't think the story ends where I've ended it. So then I wrote the second half, which I would say, yeah, it abruptly goes from being understated to almost overstated, if one can describe a book in such a way. And there is a particular scene, a particular chapter where I felt, look, in all of my stories thus far, I've hinted at violence, I've implied it, but I haven't actually shown it. And third time's the charm. It's
Oh yeah,
kind
you
of
made
like
up for it.
oh yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of a literary foreplay. It's like, are we or aren't we going to get down to the action? And it's like, oh, MDW gonna deliver. And I delivered the action in a way that nobody asked for and probably nobody ever needed to experience. But I did it anyway because that's the kind of guy I am. So that was the second half. And that then it all I wanted it all to come together in a way that would mean that there would be a third shift into another genre really right at the end of the book.
Mm-hmm.
It only becomes obvious in the final scene, but much like Kill List, which we're going to talk about today, if you look, it's foreshadowed from the start. It's just very subtle in the way that I've gone about it. But
Oh yeah.
I mean, when my co-host of This Is Horror, Bob Pastorella, talks about ideal storytelling, he says it should be logical but unpredictable. And I think and I hope that that's exactly what I did there with House of Bad Memories. I mean,
I think
with
that
the exception of chapter 23, one could argue, well, that wasn't the logical thing. But, we're talking about the overall story rather than specific elements.
Oh man, my notes literally say, let me find it here. It's a what the fuck moment followed by, oh no, that was totally normal. This is what the fuck, followed by, oh no, that's normal now.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
these moments just keep building, and then you hit. Hopefully, I don't. You can cut me off if this is too spoilery, but you hit a form of torture I had never heard of, and impressed the shit out of me. That you you impressed me there, and then I went down a rabbit hole looking it up and learning more, and I shouldn't have done that. And, and yeah, logical and then unpredictable. I think that should literally be a log line for this book. Yeah.
Log line. Interesting phrasing there. But
oh man.
I mean, in terms of that, as I say, I knew that I wanted to do something that was very impactful and didn't really shy away. I wanted to do it in as non-gratuitous a way as I can, which sounds slightly ridiculous given what the hell that scene is.
Yeah.
But I do feel that whilst I dove into some pretty graphic sensory detail, I don't feel that it overstayed its welcome. I didn't go on for pages and pages. I just gave you the facts of that torture method, what it could feel like, what it might taste like, what some of the smells and sensations will be.
Right.
And then, you know, I mean, I wanted you to experience that. And I think from the feedback, that is what happened. But I mean, is it okay to tie this into kill lists now, or do you want to? Yeah,
however you want to do it. You're in charge. We're
yeah,
just
so
here.
that is dangerous. Don't put me in charge. But I mean, they do a similar thing in Kill List where it starts off. I mean, it's almost like a domestic drama. There's almost something British soap opera-y about it, albeit for a much more adult crowd. But then when it shifts into a different genre and there is violence, we start off by seeing things gradually, a few fingers broken here and there. But then we see the main character, Jay, and he goes sledgehammer happy on a man. And it is unflinching. I believe it is just a single shot. And at that point, I mean, I think you are on edge throughout Kill List. A lot of it has to do with the soundtrack, I would say. So even though you've got this suburban strife to begin with, there is this disquieting soundtrack that doesn't quite fit. But they haven't shown anything really violent. And then they show one of the most violent scenes that you're likely to see in any film. And now you're on edge because you don't know when that's coming again. You don't know if because before you don't think it's that type of film, but now you know
not at all.
saying, well, it can be anything. You don't know what I'm going to do, and I know that he took inspiration from the film The Orphanage for that scene, which does a similar thing with an old woman getting brutally run down. So
nice.
You know that's that chapter, that torture method, that is my Ben Wheatley Kill List moment. But actually, I mean, having rewatched Kill List for the first time in about a decade, there's a lot that House of Bad Memories has in common with it. There's way more than I even realized. I knew the obvious things. I knew the genre shifting. I knew the direction that we both went in and that we'd foreshadowed. But there are so many elements, like to a point where like I would forgive people if they thought I actually had copied elements of Kill List. But I'd not really been thinking about it at the time of writing House of Bad Memories. But Yeah, even the domestic strife right at the start. I mean, I'm not as in your face as Ben Wheatley is with Kill List, but there are certain signs that this marriage, it's not quite as perfect as Denny would like it to be.
Oh, absolutely. No, you gave me a list of movies you might want to talk about, and I read your book and I instantly went, oh, we have to do Kill List. This is too good. And I don't think that they're similar enough that people would go, oh, you stole this. But I thought they just had so much in common, so many themes in common. Like there's some plot points that are similar, but I think it's more about the themes and the delivery. And when I say that, I mean, I think that if your book was a movie, you could watch these two together and you wouldn't feel like you just rewatched it.
Yeah.
You would just feel like they went really well together.
Yeah. I think so too. And I mean, something that I think happens in Kill List, and I've certainly tried to do in House of Bad Memories, is incorporate humor. But the humor is, again, it's never in your face. We're not kind of talking Jeff Strand style humor or Carlton Mellick bizarro humor. It's just every bit of humor. It is played straight, and it's normally through the dialogue and just the way in which the characters are. But yeah, actually rewatching Kill List, there's quite a bit of dark humor, or even just general humor between Jay and Gail, the Neil Maskell and Michael Smiley characters. There's a lot of, what we think of as British banter. They're just taking the piss out of each other. They're having a bit of a laugh. And I love juxtaposing that against something very dark. And the thing is, with all of my fiction, I don't seem to be able to write something that doesn't incorporate humor, and I don't seem to be able to write anything that doesn't get a little bit dark and a little bit fucked up. There have been times where I've tried to write, like, I'm going to write a straight horror book. We're going Ligotti. There's not going to be many laughs. I mean, Ligotti not known for his dick jokes, but I can't help but throw in some humor. That is just the way that my mind operates. It's also the kind of thing that I enjoy. And so, we were speaking before about my reading tastes and what I write kind of aligned in terms of enjoyment. I think to a certain extent, yes. I mean, I'm a big Chuck Palahniuk fan, and there's always a little bit of humor in his work. I love John Niven. If you haven't read any John Niven work, you really need to. He's just so funny. He's so funny. It's not very PC, but he is a good person, which I think I think that counts for a lot. Let's see, how does one put this? I don't ever think that there is a subject matter that one can't joke about, but if you're going to joke about something extreme and something terrible, then you must make sure that the butt of the joke, or the person we are making fun of, we are laughing at, is the perpetrator, not the victim. That is the best way that I can put it. But yeah, there's a lot of that in John Niven's work, particularly Kill Your Friends, which is based in the 90s and kind of Tony Blair, Labour Britain, and the Britpop movement. It is following a record executive. There is a lot of, prejudice and chauvinism and sexism, but it's poking fun at that culture. Right. It is taking the piss out of it. It's saying, look how awful it is. And I think that is a very satisfying read.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, you were talking about horror with humor in it. We've done some panels at different cons where I've said this, and I've probably said it on here, but for me, the two are very, very visceral. They work the same way. Like with a joke, you have build up, and then you have the twist, and the release is laughter. And with horror, you have build up, you have the thing that twists you and sets you off, and you scream. And at panels, I always say that it's literally the most bodily functioned thing that we have, because we're trying to make you laugh till you piss yourself, or we're trying to scare the shit out of you. So I feel like these two are so ingrained in what it is to be human that when I write, I can't not make jokes. It doesn't have to be an actual punchline. It doesn't have to be fat camp where I'm throwing out these random one-liners and shit. It can be the situation. A lot of life is really funny in a different context than you're in.
Right.
Yeah.
So like, I'm one of those people that laughs at funerals because it helps me not spiral down into absolute depression. I also see how someone else seeing me laugh at a funeral might feel very different about that, But for me, it's so personal. It's so ingrained that these two things go together. And even things that are really funny, it's kind of the same thing to me. If you're in a different context looking at it differently, it can become scary really fast. So my own writing always kind of hits those two, whether I mean to or not.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have so much to say about all of that. And if I forget to, let's backtrack to laughing at funerals in a little bit. But I mean, you're absolutely right. With the exception of erotica, horror and comedy are the only two genres that demand or desire a visceral and a physical reaction from the reader.
Mm.
And so I think that is why they go hand in hand.
Just going to add a note to myself to mention erotica at our panels now. And
Yeah. I mean, there is certainly a physical reaction that one is looking forward at one. But, I mean, the comedic horror erotica, maybe that is the ultimate genre, especially if you can do all three things at once in some glorious literal climax.
Challenge accepted.
I mean, have you ever jumped, climaxed, and shit yourself with laughter? I think if you do all three things at the same time, you explode. That sounds like the kind of thing that they told me on the playground when I was growing up. It's like, if you have a wank and a sneeze, then you're gonna blow up. Or
look, there was an old sketch on
awesome.
Saturday Night Live where, God, what was it? Alec Baldwin was a guest. And this is back when Will Ferrell and Molly Shannon and those folks were on. But one of Will Ferrell's characters, I think, was like, a very loving partner to his partner, and so they were just sharing like sex advice and talking about their adventures. So they had a guest on their radio show or their public access show or whatever they were trying to do. And it was Alec Baldwin. And he was talking about, oh, yes, I haven't seen the two of you since we decided to participate in that skydiving orgy. And he talks about how he achieved free fall. He achieved release during free fall. And because he was so overcome with emotion and everything that was going on, he opened his chute too late and ended up breaking his leg or something. But I just thought about, like, I
was going to say that seems like something where the faster you can do it, the better.
Yeah.
And there was some poor boy who was watching it all play out, and his father's like trying to shield his eyes, and he's like, "Those aren't fireworks, son."
Oh man, what were you going to say about laughing at funerals? I want to hear this.
Oh yeah. So I have I have this bizarre thing, or probably not that bizarre. I think I hope that many people have this as well, but I just have this built-in mechanism where I want to laugh anytime I know I'm not meant to laugh.
Ah,
And like so obviously like the funeral is peak place for that, because there are a few places like, you know, more inappropriate. But even sometimes it will happen, like, if I'm watching like a graduation ceremony or something, because my brain's like, oh, it'd be pretty inappropriate to start laughing through this heartwarming speech. And then like I'm biting down on the side of my cheek, trying not to laugh. And or like if I'm at school, because like I teach as well, and there's a really serious important announcement, or maybe like some of the students are in deep shit, they've done something
Right.
wrong and they're getting reprimanded by the headmaster, and I'm like, probably this is not supportive for my teaching colleagues. They're like, we're trying to tell them off and you are pissing yourself over this. What the fuck is wrong with you? It's like, well, what is wrong with me? That is the question that people have been asking for a long time now. But
it's like when
yeah,
that one kid is inappropriate and you're like, well, what did they do? And they describe what they did. You're like, fuck, don't laugh. This is funny. Don't laugh. Like my kid, I tried so hard to be serious, but it was when COVID first started, or I should say when COVID lockdowns first started in the United States, the places that were smart and decided that they were going to do that. She was home, I think it was like the first or second day. And I come downstairs. I think I came up to record, and I come downstairs and I'm like, what the fuck is on the table? I go to it and I'm like, oh, well, she left her food out. But I'm like, that's weird. Like the dog would have like probably grabbed it. She glued a tortilla to the table. And I asked her, and I'm like, and in my head, I'm like, what the fuck? Why would you do something like this? I'm like, sweetie, why did you glue a tortilla to the table? And her response, I kid you not, Daddy, I was trying to do science. And I started busting out laughing, and she started crying because she thought she was in trouble. I'm like, you're not in trouble. I just want to know what happened. Like we put a tablecloth over the table. It's no big deal. But I swear to God, every time I tell that story, I remember her face, and it was just like, I'm in so much trouble. I'm in so much trouble. I was trying to do science. I couldn't recover. I just simply said, go upstairs.
What, like 4 or 5?
No, she was 6 at the time. It was 20.
Okay.
Yeah, she was about to turn 7. And Claudia was working, and it was just hilarious to me. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. This is outstanding.
Mine actually was a graduation ceremony, so it was really funny to me that you said that. When I was in high school, I graduated a week before my girlfriend. She went to a different school, so I got to go to her graduation as well. And I'm laughing now. This is so inappropriate. They had 2 students who were killed in a car crash.
God damn it! I knew that was coming. God damn it!
And they did the let's have a moment of silence. And oh
no.
my God, man. My cousin was sitting next to me because his girlfriend also went there. And he just looks at me right as it's starting and he goes, don't laugh. And I spent the next solid minute just trying so hard. Like I'm laughing, it's bubbling up, and I'm trying to hold it in. And so when you said graduation ceremony, I was like, oh my God, somebody else has done this.
Oh man. Yeah, that is another peak example of a time. And it's like, it's ridiculous because it's like, you don't even find it funny. You, of course, know that it's awful. But the thing that is funny is like basically we're just infants. We're just fucking babies, to be honest. And what is funny is the idea of how inappropriate it would be. So like, I'll just think, wouldn't it be weird and funny and totally inappropriate if someone were to laugh at a funeral? I mean, God, like hopefully this doesn't happen at a funeral for someone really close to me, because I mean, laughing at a funeral is funny, but I mean, it's not funny, it's inappropriate. But imagine how much more inappropriate it would be if the person's funeral was your own mother. So my mother is alive at the moment, but we gotta wait and see what happens.
I laughed at my dad's funeral, and he was in the Air Force, and so he got like the Don, what is it, the color guard?
Yeah,
I don't know military stuff.
Honor guard.
Thank you. And they were doing everything they do and putting the flag over the casket and all that stuff. And one of the guys turned the wrong way and ran into one of the other guys. And I know that guy probably totally got in trouble or whatever. I don't know. But I went up to him immediately after and I was like, thank you so much. I'm sorry for whatever's going to happen to you, but you made my day so much better. And like, my aunts and uncles were like looking at me like I was a horrific person for laughing at my own dad's funeral. And I was like, my dad would have thought that was fucking hilarious.
Yeah. 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 I mean, like, the more we talk, the more I realize maybe we're just terrible human beings, but there is also
with that.
something funny about just watching other people's misfortune, even though it's not, I guess it's not, well, it kind of is funny. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just warped, but yeah, watching the errors and the blundering. I think sometimes as well, like, you know, the laughter happens after. So hopefully my colleague is not gonna listen to this somehow. But about a month ago, you know what? One of my colleagues, he's doing his work, and like he's working on a foldable table, so you probably know where this is going.
Oh, no.
And like he's just typing into his laptop, and like then like there's a massive scream. I've never heard him make a noise like this before. And like somehow like his chair and table have both absolutely collapsed and he's wedged under them. So like obviously like I do jump up and I help him and I get the table off him because I don't actually want him to be injured. But the like I kind of like I saw it play out because there's a moment where you see something before your brain registers to react. So like the chair legs went first and then he grabbed onto the table to try and stop himself falling, but somehow managed to collapse the table at the same time. So now not only has he fallen off the chair, but he's pulled the fucking much heavier table on top of himself. But yeah, I did help him up and like make sure he was okay, okay, you don't need to go to the doctors. But then after everything was like calm, I was just sitting there at my desk, just laughing, replaying the moment. Like, I can't believe what you just fucking did. And you know, like
that fits in so well. That's comedy from your point of view, and then you change the context for him, and he's in horror. See,
yeah,
totally.
yeah. But you know, luckily, I did get up very quickly and take the table off him. So I didn't like spend 5 minutes laughing and then help him. I helped him first, and then. Like, yeah, just burst into hysterics because, you know, at the moment, like it was quite shocking and it was quite horrific because it's like, why has my colleague made this primordial scream? But then that was what made it funnier reflecting on it because that motherfucker acted like he'd been shot. He acted like he'd been shot and he just pulled a table onto himself. He didn't fucking injure himself, maybe like a little scratch here and there, but god damn it. I mean, if you'd have told me somebody had ripped out his kidney, I'd have believed you from the noise that motherfucker made. But anyway, I mean, if he is somehow listening, you know, I mean, you got to see the funny side of it now, and if you don't, then you know, get a sense of humor, mate. It was comedy gold.
See, if that was me, I'd be like, "Do you guys have security footage of that?" 'Cause...
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
And the wrestling fan in me is always happy whenever somebody has problems with the tables. So,
by God, throw a table. You'll be broken in half. Yeah. I like wrestling too. Everyone like, did Michael just have a breakdown? The fuck happened?
You're in such good company. You're in good company.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think our episode on the menu was like half about wrestling. So, you know.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, the Necronomicon proudly presents a 17.5-minute conversation about wrestling with Michael David Wilson. I'm not kidding. It's just wrestling. But if you're not down with that, we got 2 words for you. Fast forward. It's literally like 17.5 minutes.
Yeah. So at the moment, are you watching WWE? Are you watching AEW? What wrestling are you watching?
I am watching both. I guess I should add a little bit more. James, I know is going to tell you that he doesn't watch.
No, I
anymore.
No, so I would say I'm more on the WWE side right now. Sometimes AEW hits these moments where they pause storylines and then wait until somebody comes back from injury, and it annoys me. And I don't know. So I stopped watching it as much. I just started watching Lucha Underground all the way through again.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So anyway, go ahead.
Not anyway. We're not segueing away from wrestling just yet. I've got a question. I'm keeping it back. Maybe
you're in charge.
Is a bad idea because you need to stop doing that. It could be a bad idea because the episode is advertised as promoting my book and promoting Kill List. But I like to talk about wrestling so much that I'm prepared to take the financial hit that the segue may incur. So we're recording this Survivor Series Eve weekend. So the question that everyone wants to know is, do we think CM Punk is coming back to WWE?
Knew it.
I do not. And my reasoning is Randy Orton. I feel like if the Punk hype wasn't there, then they would have had Randy just show up at Survivor Series as a surprise like they normally do. And they knew that they would get the same treatment that Rey Mysterio got during Daniel Bryan's amazing run when he was number 30 in the Rumble and it wasn't Daniel Bryan. And they know that they're in hostile Chicago. And if the surprise is anyone other than Punk, they're going to be destroyed. So they said it's Randy Orton out front. So I do not think Punk's coming back.
All right. Here's my weird conspiracy theory.
Sweet. Is it that Punk's the devil?
Yes.
Yes. This is the fucking content. This is the content.
We're just changing the podcast. We're a wrestling podcast now.
Forget Kill List. We'll just talk about this. The idea that I've never understood, I'm just going to fire this guy because he and another guy got into a fight. And then everybody who's in the back, they're like, people fight all the fucking time. People fight all the time in the backstage area. They get into arguments. They push each other. Somebody gets in between them and they go. Because it was too strange for them to go ahead and say, hey, Punk, go ahead and go out there and have this match with Samoa Joe, and then decide later, I'm going to fire you. It would have made much. Anyway, so with that happening and just kind of the weirdness around it, I've kind of let it open. I've left the door open. I left the forbidden door open to where Punk is masquerading as the devil, because before all this took place, before the last time took place with him and the Bucks, it was being billed as this long developing story to where it was going to be CM Punk versus MJF. And that didn't happen because Punk got suspended the first time that there was a fight, and then it got brought back, and he came back with the "I've got the real title, I'm the real champion," to where they were obviously bringing back that whole, well, we're gonna have a feud, MJF and CM Punk. I just feel as though it would just be too ridiculous for it to be the Kingdom and Roderick Strong doing it. I feel it has to be Punk and somebody else that he's mentoring, keeping, whatever. I don't know. I feel like the odds of him being the devil are much higher than him coming back to WWE. But anything can happen. Anything can happen.
Yeah, I feel that the odds are actually higher of him coming back to WWE than him being the devil, but oh my god. I want him to return at Survivor Series because I am a huge CM Punk fan, and it would be funny if that comment lost me more readers than any of the things I've said so far, but I'd be okay with that. But I mean, the one thing that would make me okay with him not coming back to WWE at Survivor Series would be if we have been played so badly that he is the devil. I don't know. That is the one thing that would eclipse him returning to WWE. I mean, for me, him being in either organization is very good for me. But if they have played that out, that they have faked the firing and everything, I mean, it would be, I don't think they'd have gone this far, but it would be even better if it's like, no, the whole stuff with like Omega and the Bucks and even Jungle Boy, they're like, no, that was all an act two. I mean,
that would be amazing.
You know, his mate is his name Ace Steel. He might not be too happy. He's like, "What? I literally got fired," and he's like, "It's your business, baby." But, you know,
Punk sliding him a couple thousand every week to be happy. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I feel, like the WWE have now announced Randy Orton, but like that. If Punk doesn't turn up in Chicago anyway, they're going to be annoyed. It doesn't matter. Like they're going to probably boo if he doesn't kind of come out at the end. Like, because people will be hoping, even if he doesn't turn up in a match, that kind of like when Bray Wyatt returned, that he'll have a cameo at the end. And like it, you know, you talk about conspiracy theories. It's been so fun and funny to watch the amount of people every week clinging to any sort of promo, any sort of reference, and being like, that is a reference to CM Punk, and feeling that the WWE are just kind of, you know, toying with us and giving us these references. And yeah, that's why this weekend is going to be so interesting, because maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But, you know, I mean, particularly Triple H's WWE, they like long-term storytelling. They like kind of fucking with people, you know, to the point where they delayed the rise of LA Knight and people were furious. But then I think there's been a bigger payoff, and hopefully there will continue to be, because again, I'm a huge LA Knight fan. But I think it would be more interesting, even if they have signed him, if they were like, we're deliberately not gonna debut him at Survivor Series because too many of you think we are. He's entering the Rumble.
Right.
I mean, he can't really enter the Rumble and not win it, I feel. So that's like Yeah.
Oh no! You have him enter the
Have him in the
Rumble,
streak.
and you have Dominic Mysterio throw his ass out.
Dominic has enough heat as it is. That
I
guy
would be the
doesn't
happiest
need-
person
he
in the
doesn't
entire world to watch that happen. That would be amazing.
need-
Dominic and
doesn't
Logan
need-
team up and Chuck Punk. That's the gold right there.
Dominic doesn't need that amount of heat. He's got
you-
enough. as
If you
it
had
is.
told me that Dominic Mysterio would be my favorite wrestler, I would have never believed you, but I cannot get enough of Dominic on my TV and the crowd just booing the hell out of him.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so glorious.
Yeah, but I feel, I mean, Punk would not agree to that. I feel that if he's gonna come back to WWE, then one of the terms is gonna be that he has to main event a WrestleMania, because that is what he always wanted.
Yep.
That was like a point of contention, which then makes it kind of difficult, because it's like, well, how? I'm just realizing how long we're talking about this now. Look, we're
That's
gonna get
fine.
back to Kill
No
List.
one listens to our show. No, I'm just kidding.
But you know, it's like, how is he even going to fit in to the picture anyway? Because it seems like with Roman Reigns, it's very likely to either be Reigns against The Rock or Reigns against Cody.
Yeah.
And then, like, I mean, Seth Rollins and CM Punk for the title is conceivable, but I feel that if he wants to main event, he doesn't mean a token main event where it's like, oh, you're one of 3 main events, which I would define means you're not a main event.
Right?
You know,
That's always
so
bothered me.
I think he wants to be the headlining act. And I think Reigns against whoever the hell Reigns is against would be the first one. And then if it was Punk and Rollins, that would be the second. And then the third main event, it'll be Brock Lesnar against a literal truck. That's how they'll do it.
Rock versus Gunther.
Yeah. Now that's
All right.
a match right there.
So I take what I
That's the
said
match.
about Dominic back, because the thing that would do even more would be to have, you know how they always do the one person's out of the Rumble, but they're not, and they're hiding on the floor.
Right.
Imagine teasing Dominic throwing Punk out as he's about to win. That crowd would fucking be pissed, and then Punk still wins. But they'd still be like, they would buy it 100% that everybody has fucked them on this.
Yeah. Like the noise if it looked like Dominic was going to win anyway. They need to, don't they? Even if Punk isn't involved, we need to tease Dominic winning. But what if there's a Kofi Kingston moment and the person who's they're meant to tease, what if they accidentally slip? And then they're like, holy shit, Dominic won the Rumble. I don't know where they go from
then
there.
Seth bury him in 30 seconds and ask for a new opponent, and Punk comes out. Anyway.
No. If Dominic accidentally wins, then I think they're like, fuck it, let's go nuclear with the heat. Let's just have him end the streak of Reigns.
I've had this glorious theory that the Judgment Day would turn on Damian and take the contract and cross out his name, and Rhea would write Dominic's name, and Dominic would take Seth's title. And I think that would just be absolute nuclear heat. It'd be amazing.
Yeah.
But I spend a lot of time thinking about Dominic.
I told James last year.
And his
that,
father, Eddie Guerrero.
Yeah. That's long-term storytelling.
And a lot of explaining to do. I told James last year, I guess not last year, earlier this year, that if this was prior to Roman Reigns wrestling, oh my gosh, Sammy. And I pointed out, I said, you know what? He's at a certain point in his run where if he beat Sammy, they had some ridiculous thing where he just beat him down. And if he came back and said, hey, my cancer has come back, whatever, right? The level of heat on him would be so bad. I told James this, I said the crowd would chant, you deserve it. Like, that's how like personal people were taking like their hatred of him and their love of Sammy at that moment. But they would have been chanting if he'd come out like, genuinely, hey, I'm taking a break. My lymphoma's my leukemia is back. My leukemia is back. Blah blah blah. There would have been fans that would have been ruthless with it. I'm like, God damn, dude, separate real life and fiction, please.
I'm one of them. I don't believe any moment in wrestling that should have happened. That was the moment. Sammy should have won.
Yeah.
I was a total mark. I was like, it could happen. And here was my reasoning. And don't worry, we'll put a disclaimer at the beginning of all this that you can skip ahead to a certain time. Anyway, no, my whole reasoning was that Sammy messed up in one of the promos and only mentioned one belt. And so I thought it would be amazing if that's how they split the belts. Sammy beats him and gets this huge moment in Edmonton. And on Monday, Paul comes out and he's like, but you only asked for a match for that title, so I'm going to need to take this one back. And I thought that would be so great because you'd get everything you need at once.
Yeah.
That would have been great. Yeah. And it wouldn't have been one of those things where the fans are looking at it like, this was predictable. It was just so subtle. Awesome. It was so subtle.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the nods to the occult in Kill List.
Mm-hmm.
Very subtle, but all of the pieces were there. But, well, I mean, we're going to have some answers to some of these pro wrestling punk questions imminently. And the only thing I'll add, and some listeners are like, no, you don't need to add anything, is if it does turn out that he's the Joker, then it's an even bigger fuck you to the WWE from Punk, because recently he's now been playing along with the conspiracy theorists. It's like, if he is like dropping hints that maybe he is going to the WWE and he isn't, like, they must be freaking out. Like, what the hell are we gonna do? But if he isn't, like, what is going on with Shinsuke Nakamura at the moment? Has he just
nobody ever knows?
Yeah, he just lost it. Like, it appears that like a lot of the wrestlers backstage, they don't know what Shinsuke is doing. Is he just a madman? Is it like, if we ask Triple H, it's like, no, he doesn't have an opponent lined up.
Right.
It's like, these aren't even meant to be in the episodes. He's just a hacker. He gets the promo into the episode, and his hacking abilities are so technical that every time we found out how he's done it, he advances his technology and gets a promo in the next episode.
I'd like to pitch a new podcast where we just talk about the writing of wrestling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, man. I love it.
Well,
wrestling makes me happy, even when it makes me very unhappy.
Yeah, it is a roller coaster, much like good fiction, good storytelling, and good movies, of which Kill List is a good movie.
All right, we'll jump into Kill List. We're finally starting the episode. No. I love the foreshadowing that you're talking about. And I mean, right down to the stabbing at the beginning when they're play fighting.
Yeah.
Like the fact that this comes so full circle, obviously we're going to talk spoilers, but everybody knows that by now. Like I love how overdone it is while at the same time being so good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. What do you guys, what do you think of that? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, what do you mean by what do you mean by overdone though, as far as your description?
Like it's so on point. Like it's literal stabbing, Mm-hmm. I love how it's not like a nod to it. It's literally like we redo the scene differently. And I think that's so great. Yeah. So that's what I meant by overdone. But yeah.
Okay. No, because by the time I got to the reveal, like this was one of those things where I literally, my jaw dropped and I went, oh fuck. Which is basically 2 thumbs up in my in my grading schema, because I wasn't expecting that ending. I was expecting a different end, a completely different ending, and not one where it's, hey, we're going to trick this guy into killing all, because he's an assassin, he's a hitman. We're going to trick this guy into doing all this shit, and then we're going to eventually get him to kill his wife and kid. Yay! by participating in the ceremony. But at the beginning of this movie, I was expecting a completely different movie than what was delivered. And I say that as a compliment, because the way it was starting off was, it seemed like a dude who was down on his luck. He needed some help. He needed money, because that was a big argument between he and his wife at the time. He and his partner was, over money. And then it's like, oh, well, take it out of the travel fund, because I can't get rid of the jacuzzi. And she points out, like, there is no holiday fund. Like, we have nothing. And you realize throughout the film, or at least in the film, that he doesn't have any work because he fucked up the last time, and he botched one of the jobs. So it's like, well, we got to find somebody who's gonna pay us to do this shit. But what you're seeing, or at least what I'm seeing at that beginning, is, here's a guy who's got PTSD because he starts, when he's telling the kid the story, he's like, oh yeah, this is about a town called Baghdadistan, and there was a bomb, and this exploded, and this. I'm thinking, like, these are kind of fucked up and bedtime stories to tell your kids, sir. But it's very indicative of somebody who may have been going through something like that, or trying to process it, or at least trying for the audience to get us to understand what he's processing or hasn't processed yet. So I'm thinking it's going to be a film about somebody who's haunted by his demons. It's going to be about PTSD, all these things. And then I guess 10, 15 minutes in the movie, you're like, oh, okay. Joe Biden hired him to kill a bunch of people. That's what's going to happen. Great. What were your... I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jim.
I was just going to say, I love that everyone that I know who watched this, because I always post what I'm watching on Facebook, and like 3 of my friends were like, yeah, that's Joe Biden, definitely. And I love that none of us can get past it, especially that scene where he's walking down the hall, like staring at the camera. He looks just like Biden with long hair, and I love it so much. But Don added a great piece to it today, and he wrote me, and he's like, you didn't tell me it was Joe Biden with Donald Trump's hair. And I just lost it, so I had to share that.
Oh yeah. And for both of you, when did you first see Kill List, or have you literally just seen it for this podcast?
This was my first time for me.
Yeah. Sam?
No, as I said before, I saw this when it first came out, so over a decade ago now. And the thing that stood out from my recollection was it starting off as this more kind of suburban drama, and then right towards then changing into just some bloody gory hitman film, and then with about 15 minutes on the clock deciding to turn into some Wicker Man adjacent occult film. But I remember from the first time I watched it, and I think it just like really shows my kind of mindset, but I did feel like it was almost like, as I said previously, a dark soap opera. So, but watching it, now, 12 years later, it's like, no, this is masterful storytelling. So like, I feel that I'm in a time of my life where I appreciate it much more. And I mean, I think that the start is incredibly uncomfortable. I mean, you've got the couple arguing in front of their kid, and it is very authentic for anyone who has experienced something like that. If you've grown up with an angry parent and parents arguing, or not even necessarily your own parents, but if you've witnessed that, then it's so on point. And we spoke about how the soundtrack is very disconcerting, but at this point, I mean, just the volume, the anger, the way that they're conducting the argument. I don't think there is a soundtrack for that part, and that makes it more chilling. And it's clearly very deliberate. But I felt that Ben Wheatley and the actors, they encapsulated real kind of almost 70s dad anger, let's say, in in a way in which Midsummer encapsulates just pure grief with that scream in the opening section. So it was so effective in terms of the playing and the play stabbing and how that mirrors the final act.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that is only something that you really get on the second viewing, or that you get when you're really thinking about it afterwards. So it's one of those things that makes the film worth watching multiple times, as you can see these things playing in. You can see the way that Fiona, the wife, carves a symbol on the back of the mirror. I mean, as horror stalwarts, we're like, okay, something's going on here.
Right.
That is not normal. But like, I think if you weren't a horror fan and you didn't really know what this film was about, you might just think, okay, well she's lost it. She's got an interesting way of dealing with anger. And even like I can't remember exactly what it is, but there's something where with like the cloth that's covered in Jay's blood. So there's all these little bits of foreshadowing in terms of what's going to happen. And yeah, it's just so masterfully done.
The symbol that she put on the mirror. I have a friend who's really into sigils and stuff, so I sent it to them to see, like, is this one that's well known, blah 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 blah. And it turns out the either the writer or the director, I don't remember, came up with it. And so then I was reading about it, and they said that it was like an influence from the Blair Witch Project, even though they didn't realize it at the time. He said, like, looking back, he could see that. And I guess a bunch of other people online thought that it was a reference to Harry Potter because it looks like the Elder Wand and the cloak and stuff. And I thought, man, that just sums everything up right there. Like, what are your experiences? What are you bringing to film? And how does it influence, like, what you take from it,
Right.
I don't know. I just wanted to share that because it kind of went into what we were talking about before with your different, what we bring into each thing we write or look at.
Yeah. And in terms of the religion and the cult, I know that it was very important to Ben Wheatley that it didn't mirror an actual cult, because like he didn't want to base it on a real life one, because he found that would be disrespectful. But I mean, things like this ancient kind of druid and pagan adjacent stuff, you see a lot of it just in the UK. I mean, for goodness sake, we've got Stonehenge. So like, it, particularly if you're living in the UK, it's conceivable that this could be part of reality. It doesn't feel so fantastical. And this is getting back to what was said much earlier about it being so frightening in terms of what people will do and what they will believe. And I mean, there's all sorts of secret brotherhoods, not just in the UK, but within the world. And so you kind of get, I guess there's a mystique surrounding them, and then you get urban legends, and it's like, look, what are these rich men in cloaks actually doing? How much of this is or isn't based on reality, and we don't always know, and that's what makes it frightening.
Yeah, we have a bit of a cult here in the US. I don't know if you've heard about it. They wear red hats and they all worship this guy no matter how much you try to talk sense to them.
They all say the same thing.
Well, yeah.
I couldn't
Well,
resist.
we have the secret code that we keep saying out loud to everybody, and then we tell people if they don't laugh or they're not offended by it, we then say what it's supposed to mean. Meanwhile, grown-up adults, we can all say fuck X, fuck Y, fuck Z. We don't give a shit.
well,
We don't need to come up with
Elon
secret.
Musk is not very happy with the way that you started that. Fuck X. That is deeply personal.
Here, I'm going
I
to say
mean-
this again. Twitter, because if he dead names his own child as well as other trans people, fuck him and fuck Twitter. I'm sorry, fuck X. It's Twitter.
Man, oh man. No,
Well,
but
I go on, James.
I was just gonna say, like, I'm half joking and also definitely not when I say the cult thing, but I mean it permeates everything. Like, even like trying to talk to my mom about religion or whatever. Like, it's amazing to me how just an even better example is like her brothers all fought in Vietnam, and she is a pretty racist individual. And from her point of view, that's a big reason why, because people who look different than me like killed a bunch of my friends and stuff, right? And I get that, but I can't rationalize it for me, obviously. But that's kind of that same feeling of no matter what you bring to somebody who believes these things, it's not going to change. And you can be the most logical person and give them every bit of evidence, and somebody's in a cult in some way. And
Right.
I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to say is cults aren't just people in religious sects or wearing the robes, or I know you guys aren't saying that, but I'm saying for the listeners,
No, yeah.
cults can be fucking anything that you
Yeah.
believe with absolute abandon and refusal to look at anything else.
Yeah, and I think all the things that you're saying about people who follow Trump and the Republican Party. I mean, we can apply it to pretty much any political party that exists and has ever existed, in the sense that there is the ability or the possibility that one can become radicalized to a point where they will only repeat, I guess, like kind of pre-approved points rather than thinking what do they actually believe. When I think the reality, if we're to be honest, is yes, I think there will be parties that we resonate with much more than other parties, but there's probably going to be some things from the party that you support that you disagree with, and probably if you dig deep enough, there'll be other parties that you find yourself against, where you're like, well, I kind of agree with that point, or if even not agree, you can see the logic to certain points. So I think, at the moment, and probably with social media and the way that algorithms, they reward conflict, there's a tendency to want to have a hard line and to almost blindly believe or follow something without actually thinking. But if we were to be honest, then there's probably not a party that we 100% resonate with. And I think we should think and we should fact check before spouting these things, because I mean, if you see something from a party that you disagree with, then you'll probably be quick to fact check it and to be like, this is why that's nonsense. But then the same people who are doing that will then sometimes not fact check the things that they're spreading, because those things they agree with or they corroborate their point of view. So I think, all parties have the potential to be corrupt and to be cult-like.
If anybody out there wants to research this more without going into exact politics, I highly suggest any message board involving AEW fans and WWE fans. That'll sum it up for you. I just thought you should know.
And we've brought it back to the
I couldn't
topic of
resist.
the podcast, which we're
couldn't
now going to
resist.
have to. I mean, we could title the podcast at this point AEW or WWE. Where will CM Punk end up? I mean, whatever we title the podcast, it's going to piss some people off because we've gone in so many directions.
What about New Japan?
Yeah.
He could be in New Japan.
I couldn't resist. It was right there.
Yeah.
But no, I agreeing with what you said about social media and how it rewards conflict. I do feel like this happens with absolutely everything. Even like recipes, I'll see like, oh, chili can't have this. Like it's so crazy how we are just trained to fight over every little thing. That's nuts.
You have to find your tribe. Now, between these two, speaking of cults, religions, and all this other stuff, so there's this point in the movie where Gal and Jay, they're like at a hotel bar or something like that. This is like every time I see someone pull out a guitar or has a guitar, my anxiety goes up. Because if we're at a convention and somebody pulls out an acoustic guitar, I'm leaving. It's just one of the things that I guess would be part of one of the several conditions I have. I don't like sing-alongs. I don't like impromptu concerts. There was this one time in middle school where we went on a field trip to Fort McPherson or Fort Gillem in Georgia, and there was a group of choir kids on the bus, and they all started singing "I'm Proud to Be an American." And let's just say I almost got in trouble that day for what I had to say about them singing on the bus. And, they were very culty about their song because they're like, "You're not proud to be an American." And I said, "I don't give two shits. I don't care. I don't care." Anyway, so this part that really got me was Jake gets up and goes to the people table and is like, "Oh, you're making my stomach turn, or you're giving me indigestion or something like that." And they start apologizing. And I love how this is a very church group, and I didn't realize this was something elsewhere. This to me struck me as like Southern church group activities, where it's like, well, God's love can be hard to swallow, and his response is not as hard as a dinner plate. I laughed so hard because then it kept going on, right? Because it's not like, oh, well, I get the threat. It's basically saying like, shut the fuck up. Like, we're in a restaurant, we're in a bar. Like, no, this time and place, right? Mm-hmm. So he gets on the guy and says, oh shit. Said if God loves me, then if you're the kind of people he hangs out with, then no, I'm not interested. and the guy then his friend Gal responds, is like, "I'm sorry about my friend, please accept our apologies, blah blah blah." And if you've been talking to God, put in a good word for us. And I thought that was a cool little nugget into their relationship and how they kind of deal with each other and how they kind of deal with these jobs. It's kind of like, just don't fuck it up for us. Like, calm the fuck down. Hey, by the way, guys, if there is a God, hook us up with this thing. But no more singing. Have either of you had that experience where somebody just randomly decided, I'm going to start playing or I'm going to start singing?
Oh, I'm sure that I have. I mean, it certainly seemed relatable. I didn't think, oh, wow, I've never seen that before. So it's definitely happened, but I mean, it wasn't so memorable that I can recall specifics. I mean, yeah, I just think it's a little bit inconsiderate and shows quite a grandiose, selfish view of oneself. It's like there are other people about, I mean, kind of, I agree with everything Jay said, but I would stop short of actually smashing up everything and looking like I'm going to actually kill him.
Right.
So I think I think though that this is a great point as well for foreshadowing and contrasting the religious beliefs of Jay and Gail, because you've got Gail who is very God-fearing. He's kind of searching for his way back to religion, but he's also trying to reconcile how that fits in with killing a load of people for money. And then you've got Jay, who he doesn't believe in a god, so it's much simpler. But I mean, that is a very subtle bit of foreshadowing right there. It's introducing religion, it's introducing belief, it's letting us know what Gail stands for and what Jay does not stand for.
Right.
That's glorious. I didn't even make that connection. And as you started talking, I was like, oh my God, the glass shattered. And yeah, no, it's so good. And it also it goes into their relationship. Like, I don't know which one of you said, but just how they interact with each other as well. Like, we've all had that friend that, well, I've had that friend, I assume most of us have, that kind of causes stuff that you don't really want to be a part of, but you kind of put up with it because other stuff is good. And
you can say my name, James. That's fine.
Okay, Vince. And I'm just kidding. That was a cheap shot. I hope Vince isn't listening.
Jesus Christ.
He'll hit me again. Make him stop. But no, just we like that uncomfortable but still controlled. Like, this isn't the first time he's apologized for his friend.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's so good.
I could imagine, because I mean, they went from being concerned about going to the hotel, like somehow somebody at the hotel was going to see them and know what they were up to, which I thought was weird. I thought they were going to the hotel to kill somebody and then, jet out. But it was to go get their contract. Oh, we skipped over that part because I started talking about them talking to Jesus guys. But the first indication that something is not right, at least for me, not just the symbol, but I mean, as far as like them interacting in the world, as far as like the way in which they deal with other people, is when they meet the client and he just so smoothly just grabs and holds out his hand like he's going to shake his hand, then slashes Jay's hand, and then says, "Hey, this is part of the deal. This is part of the process." And that, as a horror viewer, you immediately know this is not a good thing. If you're watching this as a crime thriller action movie, you're sitting there thinking like, well, this is probably the way this is done, because this is, the underworld. This is the way that people are behaving. And this is the way that, to know that I know that you're in on this. But when his wound isn't healing and he's getting, at least he's feeling as though that like there's this infection going throughout his skin and everything, you're drawn back to that and questioning, all right, what are we doing here? What was on the knife? And you're not thinking cult. You're not thinking anything like that way down the road. You're thinking, oh shit, there's something inside of him. There's something that's gonna, eat him up from the inside, or there's gonna be something that's gonna make him go crazy, or something other than what ends up happening.
Yeah, I think almost the most perplexing part of that bit is that Jay doesn't really do much about it. And given Jay's character, I like it's never referenced again. He doesn't say to Gail like, fuck was that about? So it is a little bit jarring how that happens and then isn't really talked about, and we don't know why it happened until the end.
Mm-hmm. And even then, we're not sure of the stakes until Jay kind of wants out, and then it's the client makes it clear, it's like, we'll kill you, we'll kill your family, we'll kill everybody, and then you realize, okay, well, it's more than just about money. This is, you can't just have the money as that carrot, you have to have that stick. So you guys are going to go through this no matter what. Like, something's going to happen, but these people on this list need to be taken care of. And if you don't finish this job, you're gone.
Yeah.
So my
Yeah.
question to two of you is this. James already knows where I'm going with it. Would either of you pursue this type of employment or vocation? No. Really?
I'm a very clumsy individual. This wouldn't work out for me.
God, that would be hilarious, though. That would be a great movie. The clumsy assassin.
Oh man.
The bungling hitman.
Yeah. I'm just not going to pursue this line of work because I'm anti-war. So when it comes so that by default, really, I'm anti-killing other people. And I feel that there are other ways that I can make money. That is not within my character. So no, I'm not going to pursue that line of work. I have confirmed it here. If people were wondering if MDW would ever start killing people, that is not.
But
that's exactly the kind of thing an assassin who didn't want people to know would say.
Exactly. Or a clumsy assassin who never got to do anything. Well, I only ask that because we don't know that we think that the motivation is just, at least motivation on their part is money, right? But you can also see this underlying motivation with Jay, or at least this rationalization with Jay, because in one of the conversations he talks about what he's doing and he says, hey, these are bad people. They should suffer. And it's quite remarkable that that's the way that he rationalizes or validates it, even when it comes to trying to figure out with, I can't remember who, it wasn't the MP, I think it was the librarian or whoever. They were trying to figure out whether or not they should pursue this. And from looking around, they realize that this is the thing they should be doing. It's quite, I question exactly everybody's reasoning for being on that list. But I can understand at least Jay's viewpoint of like, I have to do this one for financial security, but also doing it because these are bad people, or these are people that have done bad things. Because I'll be honest with both of you right now. There are bad people. If you gave me the opportunity and said there would be no consequences because this person is, I don't know, they're a serial rapist and murderer, and they hit kids or worse, right? I'm not going to hesitate. But now, I don't mean as far as like you walk up to me like, we know that this is the guy, like he's been live streaming the shit that he's been doing. Somebody that like at that point, and you say, as the state, you're going to give me the permission to do this. I don't know if I feel as though I could, but I don't know if I would do it in the sense of, there's still that sense of calling or the cause of justice of like, he should still go through the courts. But at least with them, these aren't necessarily any crimes that anybody's been accused of, charged with, or served a sentence for. It's just that somebody else deemed that they were bad, so they need to go.
Yeah, but I think what you're talking about is completely fantastical, because now you've changed the situation. You've said that you're being told there will be no consequences. Well, that isn't reality.
Right.
Because so even if you were told there's no legal consequences, how can you guarantee that you're now not going to have some sort of PTSD, that you're not going to have some emotional trauma just because there's no legal consequences? How are you going to guarantee that all of your loved ones, all of the people who, hold you dearly, look at you in the same way? I don't think we can guarantee. And then if we do guarantee that, then it almost becomes such a fantastical question that it's not even worth us pursuing, because it's not grounded within the real world. And from what you're saying is you think that in the right circumstances you are physically capable of killing a person. Do you really think that?
No, I think depending on the circumstance, I think as far as like defending myself, yes. Pursuing a career as a hitman, no. if there's somebody that has been, because I don't believe in the death penalty, but let's just say that I know this person killed my mom and they're on death row and they invite me in to, pull the switch or pull the lever. I might take a minute to think about it. But again, like you said, you'd still have to deal with all the trauma. You'd have to deal with whatever you had to go through at that point.
I mean, this is a little bit what I kind of try to deal with and unpack in House of Bad Memories. It's like, if you start doing something like that, then maybe you become the monster.
Right.
There is the danger, I don't think you can kill someone and then be the same person again.
Oh God, no.
And like, I think there are consequences, and it doesn't really sit right. And I think there are going to be other ways to deal with that situation.
All right. Michael is not invited to my cult.
Jesus. Anyway, no, I think that what you were just saying about the trauma and stuff is one of the things this movie does really well. The way PTSD is shown from their mission in Kiev, like I love how it affects every piece of his life, and or at least the parts that were shown.
Right.
And it feels so real. I've spent a lot of time working in psych hospitals and in like rehab centers and stuff, and assisting people who are dealing with PTSD among many other things. And they knew their shit when they were making this movie. Like, he comes off very, very real and very stuck in whatever he did that we never get a full view of. And I think that it's also interesting how you're still so fucked up that you don't know what else you could do. So you kind of doing this, even though it's probably not on the same level. I mean, it's still killing people, but whatever he did really fucked him up. So I feel like it must have been a higher level than what he's doing now. But just that, like, I'm not a normal person anymore. So what can I do to make money? What are my skills still? That kind of thing. I thought all of it rolled really well together, but that just absolute portrayal of PTSD fucked me up watching it, because I've seen so many people that looked exactly like that.
Yeah. I mean, but before you were talking about Jay's motivation being financial, but I think as we've said here, and in terms of what we're talking about, I do think that his motivation isn't just financial. I think a lot of it is to do with his PTSD, and so him finding an outlet for it. I mean, he's clearly affected by what's gone on. We're seeing that in his relationship. We see that with the moment where he rips the tablecloth off and throws
Abracadabra.
So yeah. So this is a way for him to let his frustrations out and to get rid of some of that anger in a way that he can rationalize. So I think he's rationalizing this because he needs to do something. He needs to have an outlet for his anger.
I love the tone shift that took place here, right? So you've got the beginning where you feel it's going one direction, right? Then it turns into more of an action hitman type film. But it's not until that last 20 minutes, I guess, that you really get a sense of, we've been played as an audience as well, not just Jay. We've been played as the audience, because now you have that glimpse of the cult ceremony. I shouldn't even say cult, call it cult ceremony, of the ceremony. And because their target is that, they start shooting. Gal dies. We get this great interaction where we finally get to see not Shell, but Fiona. How Fiona's not like this. I guess just this regular housewife. You see that she, in this regular veteran, because even when she's explaining it to Fiona, she mentions like, oh yeah, I went in. Oh well, it's so wrong that they make women do that. And her response is like, no, I wanted to go. I didn't want the boys to have all the fun. And you never really get to see that again until the end. And you kind of question, holy shit, what else has been going on? Is this like a Mr. and Mrs. Smith type situation where they've just been, she's got her contracts that she goes on and he gets his contracts. And because she was way too good with that silenced handgun.
Yeah.
Way too good with it.
Yeah, but even when he's coming back, I mean, it's obvious that she's complicit because she's the one kind of patching him up.
Right.
She's the one like checking in. She's the one who I think she instigated him getting this job.
Most
she
definitely.
invited Gail round. So I think she's in on it at every level.
She definitely got more than she bargained for.
I don't know. I mean, a lot of the members get killed because it's for the greater glory. So
right.
Maybe she always knew that's how it would end. You were talking earlier about the thing that like first tipped you off that things were crazy is the stabbing in the hand. And yeah, that was obviously crazy. But the first place that I really went, what the fuck, was the first person on the list who gets killed, who thanks him right before he's shot. Like, oh my God, that was the moment for me. That's where I went, what the fuck is happening?
Well, that one didn't stand out to me because it was the priest. The priest was the first kill, right? Because I know it was priest, librarian, and anyway. But when it's the priest, I figured, okay, I'm looking at this from an American perspective. The priest got caught, doing unspeakable things to kids. The client just picked all these people who have been doing bad shit and had been getting away with it. And this was the priest's way of saying, like, thank you for freeing me of this burden, this demon that I have in me of doing what I've been doing. So it didn't stand out to me, but when you bring it up now, I'm like, that makes perfect sense. It made perfect sense for those individuals who were selected to be thankful that they were selected, because they see themselves as the ones that are going to ensure that their belief system, their culture, subgroup, whatever, continues on. So now this is going to survive because you're going to get stronger. It's going to expand. So, yeah.
I think it goes into what I was saying about your book earlier, Michael. Like, this first thank you was a what the fuck moment for me. When the second thank you comes, that was me going, oh, wait, no, that was normal. This is fucked up because now it's two of them.
Yeah. And one thing that we haven't mentioned is there's, quite a kind of Get Carter and Guy Ritchie influence, I think, going on as well. Particularly in the way that not just that these two hitmen are going around, but even the titles like the Hunchback and the Librarian. I thought aesthetically it had something of one of those kind of old school violent British crime films.
Yeah.
I think that pretty much covers everything I had in my notes. And what about you, Michael? Do you have a lot that you still want to talk about?
I think that we've covered Kill List.
Cool.
I think we did a fine job.
So let's move on to movie recs, I guess. Michael, you are the guest, so we'll let you go first. If people liked this, what else should they watch? And since you just mentioned the other throwback British movies, like, are there some that you would suggest from that as well?
I think in terms of if you enjoy the more Hitman element, then Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels is an absolute classic. And I quite enjoyed, is it The Gentlemen that recently came out? That's another Guy Ritchie movie. Obviously, for stuff from the occult, then it's very obvious to mention the Wicker Man. There is something of the Wicker Man about this, but the Wicker Man is far less kind of gritty and sweary. It's almost more suburban and nice up until it isn't. I would also think that you should check out other films by Ben Wheatley. I would recommend Sightseers. That is a film that really combines dark thriller and comedy. It certainly has more comedic elements than Kill List, so I think that would be a great film for you to watch. In terms of other kind of occult films, I mean, or films in that direction, I've always liked House of the Devil. That's a very good film.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a good one. Anything for Jackson is very good too. That is a little known movie. So, yeah, those are just some of the recommendations that you should check out.
Nice. All right. I usually do a double feature and then we'll kick over to Don's 347 movies. My double feature that I think would be fun with this is 1BR. I absolutely love 1BR, and it has a lot of the cult similarities and just a lot of what the fuck moments, and it has one of my other favorite torture scenes in a film. Yeah. All right, Don, 347 movies. What do you got?
One of my other favorite torture scenes. All right. Nocturnal Animals. I've got The Ritual, especially if you want to stick with the same type of thing. I Saw the Devil. James's movie the movie that James reminds me is my favorite movie of all time. Go ahead, James.
I wouldn't know.
The Vitch. God, he made fun of me for like a whole year because I kept showing up in search, whatever, on social media every time The Witch was posted. For some reason, I was tagged in it. It Follows, Cabin in the Woods, From Hell, Banshee Chapter, Knock Knock, Jacob's Ladder, The Void, They Live, and a film that James absolutely loves, Society.
I do love Society. Not as much as Haley Piper does, but I do love Society.
I just remember your reaction to like the whole butthead thing. It was great. It's a fun movie.
All right. So, Michael, let's kick it back to you. Where can people buy your new book and your other books and, check out the podcast and whatever else you want? And where can they find you on social media before Elon destroys everything that we've ever loved?
Well,
all because of his divorce bad energy.
I'm sorry, that Elon Musk is going to be able to destroy social networks that he doesn't own, but I guess he does have a lot of money. So obviously your new conspiracy theory is that he's going to buy and destroy every social media network.
But he's taking down Slasher next. Yeah.
Yeah. Slasher. Is that like a British app where we kind of rate our pee? Is that what that is? Slasher. But
Slasher's actually a horror social media. But yes, I love that.
I want to know about this peeing app.
Oh, it is that you're not joking. Slasher is a real app. Okay.
Slasher really is, yeah.
Oh, there you go. Well, you can't find me there, obviously. Now,
tell them that they can and just see how long it takes them.
Well, now that they've heard this exchange between us, I don't think they'll believe it, but okay.
Damn it.
You can find me on Slasher. In terms of the new book, House of Bad Memories, it has been published via Cemetery Gates Media. So if you want, you can buy it directly, cemeterygatesmedia.com. You can also get it on Amazon. You can request it in your library. You can request it in your local bookstore. So buy it wherever good books are available. Also consider the audio book. That is published by This Is Horror. and it is narrated by Aubrey Parsons. It is available on all audiobook platforms, including Audible, Google Play, Apple Books, and you can also request that on various library apps. So if you want to listen to it, but you don't have the financial means to do so, then do see if you can find it on your local library app. In terms of other books, there is The Girl in the Video that is published by Perpetual Motion Machine Publishing, but these days they are really doing everything under Ghoulish Books. So if you go to their website, you can get The Girl in the Video. And Their Watching is available, published by This Is Horror. The best way to get that is on Amazon or through your local bookstore. And
Awesome.
yeah, This Is Horror podcast. You can get it wherever you get your podcasts. You can also watch the video versions of most of the podcasts that we've been doing this year over on YouTube, youtube.com/@thisishorror-podcast. And in terms of those social apps, apart from Slasher, which we've mentioned already, you can catch me on X, formerly known as Twitter, @thisishorror. You can catch me on Blue Sky @thisishorror.bsky.social. So very catchy username there.
Right.
You can catch me on Instagram @thisishorror-podcast. And recently I have been using TikTok more, and you can find me there @thisishorror-podcast. So really, it's either @thisishorror or @thisishorror-podcast. That would be the username everywhere, apart from
Excellent.
Slasher, and you just have to track me down. It's a pseudonym on Slasher. Slasher Boy 159. It's not Slasher Boy 159. That's Max Spoof.
I'm gonna run to Slasher right now and sign up with that username and post as you. Anyway.
Yeah.
Good God. Well, sincerely, thank you for doing the episode today. I've had a great time.
You.
Plus, we got to talk about wrestling, and that's always a joy.
Yeah, we're gonna have to reconvene and just see what happens with CM Punk. I am excited to see how it plays out. But
isn't that really the sign of what we want? We want to not know. Like, and this isn't just wrestling. Like, we all say, "Oh, wrestling's so predictable," but I hear it with books a lot too. You know, and isn't this what we want? We want this moment of not knowing, but thinking we know what's going to happen, but we're not sure.
Right.
Like that's better writing than we get from most stuff. So I love it.
Yeah. Logical, but unpredictable.
Boom. Way to bring that back. That was a good callback. I like it. All right. I suppose that ends this week. So as always, I'm James Sabata.
And I'm Don. I'm going to go have a double orange juice.
Good God. And we'll see you back here at thenecronama.com. Sometimes in life, we just have to admit when we were wrong. And if you're one of the people who listened to that 17.5-minute discussion with Michael David Wilson, and you're also a person who watched Survivor Series, then you know I was wrong. CM Punk returned. Everything I thought was true is a lie. I will have to live with this shame for the rest of my life. But hey, that's wrestling for ya.